Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, yes, it's time once again for the CryptoManiacs podcast here on the glorious, glorious Hive blockchain via Vim, via 3Speak, but we are streaming for your viewing pleasure and listening pleasure on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. Hello, Task. How's your week going, sir?
I'm depressed. I was looking at the price of Polycup and it's gone down. And I live by every tick on the markets in crypto. So it must be Polycup is a crap project, and I'm going to lose all my money because the price has gone down from $1.23 to 85. It's the end of the world.
Surely you jest.
Please don't call me Shirley, except on Saturday.
Yes. Apparently
Yes,
everything
I,
is.
I for anybody who's listening and not watching this, yes, I am being a bit sarcastic. If you don't know by now, John and I really don't live by the tape. Uh, every move in the markets doesn't really bother us.
Yeah, the price of crypto, and I'm sure there will be some comments today, goes up and down. That's the only guarantee. We were gonna have a special guest today. It was kind of a short notice, but it didn't look like it worked out. So we do have people's questions because you guys came out in droves again this week. Really good questions from everybody. So if you're ready, Task, we can dive right into the question and answer show. Are you ready?
Go ahead. We're starting late, so let's get it rocking and rolling.
Let's get it going. So, like we said, you're gonna want to make some. Wanted to ask some questions because we got episode. Well, this is episode 99 right now. Episode 99, which means our 100th episode is next week Tuesday. Stay tuned. Right? Is that a good hint or no? No? Yeah. Stay tuned.
Works for me.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Tune in on Tuesday. Good stuff. Might
Tu-
be might be a little extra there. Who knows? We don't know. And
Yeah,
we have no idea what
absolutely.
it'll be. There might be a guest, might not be a guest. We honestly don't know. Invited,
Yeah, that
we invited Brian, but he doesn't respond. So I thought it was me,
well,
but John tried to message.
Brian kind of invited
Well,
himself,
that
which we agreed,
he does that. He does that,
Yeah.
and But I thought it was just me when he didn't respond. But he didn't respond to you either, so I don't take it personally. It must not be me.
Perfect.
So.
Beautiful. Good morning, Jimmy. Good morning, Chris. Welcome, guys. Okay, so let's dive into it. DevPress is up first. Share some business ideas which can be done on the blockchain. I'm always in search of some of the simple business that can be done here on the blockchain. So that it's what can be. I mean, a lot of things can be built on the blockchain. I think examples of what we're seeing now, specifically with our stuff, listeners, membership sites, training sites can be done. Verify that you've done the work. I mean, it's really your imagination and truth be told, development. Like if you have a developer, you could probably build whatever you got to ask yourself, does it even need to be on a blockchain?
Yeah.
That's the big thing. Just saying, oh, we're on the blockchain for the sake of being on the blockchain, that's just a marketing ploy.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to ask yourself, should my business be on the blockchain? Then the next step is, okay, well, I'm just limited by my creativity and my development. If I have a developer, especially on Hive and with everything that Block Trades is doing, this is going to be pretty easy for developers to build on Hive. But I think the starting point, to me at least, would be, should I even build something on the blockchain?
To me, it's what parts of this are you going to implement? And you look at NFTs, you look at tokenizations, you look at DeFi, you look at DAOs. Is any of that applicable to what you're building? If it's not, you probably don't need blockchain. But if you're building a game and going to incorporate some of that in, then obviously you'll want that. If you're like with listeners didn't have to go on blockchain until you incorporated the incentive layer.
Right.
And that obviously um, required blockchain and Hive engine and all of that. So the tokenization aspect required that. That's the big thing is, are you using attributes or aspects of blockchain, excuse me, in what you're building?
Yeah. Yep. Good question though, because I think that's especially we being in CTP, we want to bridge the gap, and a lot of times people are like, okay, what can I bring to the table if we're bridging the gap here between online business, affiliate marketing, and the blockchain? But the big thing is, should it even be on the blockchain? Good question. Arcane is up. Bob Kane wants to know. I am sure by now, John Olson, you are a whale. We'll talk about that in a second. Since there are probably a lot of new people out there, can you please explain the benefits of the different Hive levels? So first of all, here's the truth of it. Combine Hive power, Task and I would not even be a whale. Because a whale on Hive is roughly, I know there's this different, it's done by VES, but it's give or take around 500,000 Hive power. Anything
I
above
think
that.
it's closer to 550 now.
550? Yeah. So 550,000 Hive power to be a whale. There's not a lot of them on Hive. What would you say? 50 maybe? Probably less,
No,
right?
yeah, I think it's been a while since I've looked at Arcane stats, but I would say maybe 30,
30. Yeah.
35, 40. We were at 40 for a while, and they drift out in and out, and but then some of that can be spread among a couple accounts too. So
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot. It really is. You got a handful. They call me Dan block trades. Some of them.
Marky. Yeah.
Marky, maybe
Mm-hmm.
aggroed. Uh, People from the early days. Freedom, obviously, who doesn't, nobody knows who that is. So there's really a limited amount, and most are you get more in the orcas. I looked, I think there were 300 or 250 orcas, which is roughly 55,000 to 555,000, and then the lower levels. The reason for it is just it's a gamification. You come in, you're a plankton, you want to get to redfish. You're redfish, you want to be a minnow. Minnow, you want to be a dolphin. And it also is a way with Archange and some other people who do some analysis. Dow's does analysis here and again. Archange does it daily. How is the middle class forming? At least, and keep in mind, this is only in high power. Has nothing to do with your Hive engine tokens or what you have in HBD or what you have in other things. It's just Hive powered up. So that again, you would think a guy like Markey or Block Trades, not only do they have a lot of high power, they probably got a lot of HBD and a lot of other stuff, but who knows? I mean, there's people with very little high power who are Splinterlands millionaires. I mean, Neil McSpadden, we had him on a couple, I guess the beginning of last month. I don't think he has much high power, but he's got a crap load of Splinterlands.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's a good way for gamification. So it's kind of just different levels and stuff. And Deltron showed up.
Oh,
so I'm glad we got our questions in. Well, here we go. So I don't know what we're gonna have to do with these questions because there were some really, really good questions that people asked.
We will save them and get to them.
Okay, so we will get to everyone's questions next week. So let me shut this down here, and then I'll bring up.
Well, I kind of lucky I just got back in time.
There you are. I hear them.
Yep. Hello.
You all right, guys? Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, man.
Awesome.
Cool. So this is we're right in the middle. Didn't know if anyone was coming, and so we started the show in the middle of it. But better, let's get into it. So for everyone that asked the questions, we will do them next week on Friday's show. But here we are. Welcome to the CryptoManiacs podcast. We have a special guest this week, so let's dive into it. Task, would you like to dive in?
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, welcome to the show. Do you care to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit briefly how you found cryptocurrency and Hive and that type of thing before we get into the meat and potatoes of what you're here to talk about?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm Tom, the Deltron. I've been in crypto since, I guess, 2016. First, I was interested in BitShares initially. That was kind of what drew me into all this. Since then I've kind of been just on and off working on kind of like small film projects within the crypto space. And I guess leading up to now, I just stayed in crypto all this time. And I was working on a project that's a kind of side political project with Starkers, and he started to tell me about Hive and more particularly the Justin Sun takeover. And he was on a podcast with he was basically on a podcast with Charlie Shrem, and Charlie Shrem were telling the story of kind of Justin Sun, the takeover, etc. Really good podcast. If anyone hasn't seen it, you should check it out, Starkers and Charlie Shrem. But basically they were explaining kind of what happened with Hive. He was explaining what happened with Hive and the Justin Sun takeover and how kind of the community bought it back. And Charlie Shrem, who is also a film producer, was like, write me a script and we'll turn this into a movie. And I work in film. I was talking about it with Starkers, and he goes, you should get together, get a script writer, kind of put all this together and actually get it over to Charlie Shrem. And that was when I first started to delve into the Hive community. And it's been a roller coaster. I've spoken to loads of really cool guys. We set up a Discord channel kind of about this, and now we've just finding out about the script, how the community wants it written, and now we've got a proposal up, and we're hoping it'll pass. But we've hadn't asked me anything. We've spoken to like loads of key community members, and I found out a hell of a lot about Hive and a hell of a lot about kind of the birth of Hive, and it really is an incredible story. It's mental.
So you weren't around when the Justin Sun saga was taking place. You came after?
Yeah, I came after. I was, I literally came this year, so it's actually over to the Hive community. I had a Steam account way back when, but there was very little kind of involvement. It was more kind of other areas of crypto that I was working on, like as kind of very small projects and things like that, and just general investing, just general interest in the space. And it wasn't until I kind of started a political project that I can't actually talk too much about, and then I asked Starkers for some help because we knew him from a mutual friend, and that was kind of what dragged me into Hive and dragged me into wanting to produce this script for the community.
Gotcha. So you were familiar with Steam, and even got an account, you just never really used it or utilized it. You were looking elsewhere and focused elsewhere.
Yeah, pretty much. I had an account. I had a few, I believe I had a few posts. I would have to dig up the old account. I don't even think I've got the logins anymore. But I was aware of this, and I've met Dan Larimer at a couple of conferences. I was a huge kind of fan of BitShares, and that's kind of and the tech behind it. That's kind of what really got me. Obviously, Bitcoin gets everyone into the space, but it was kind of discovering BitShares, and then kind of really got into crypto when EOS was starting to launch, and it was just so I was always aware of Dan Larimer's work and kind of what he was up to, and kind of what he's created, and obviously he's left each project he's been part of, and it's kind of been carried on by the community. But I've always, I guess, I think it was BitBoy Crypto or something like that I initially heard the story about kind of the Justin Sun takeover, but didn't really think anything of it. And it wasn't until kind of later on, and really going into depth with Starkers, and then afterwards speaking to the whole community. Like I've been speaking, like, you know, I guess I've been on a call with like kind of Ganja Farmer. We've did our AML. Like I've spoken to loads of guys in the community. We sorry, Ask Me Anything rather, not AML, AMA, and yeah, I've just found out a hell of a lot about the community, a hell of a lot about kind of what actually went on, and the more I hear, the more I realise that this is, you know, it needs to be made into a film. The world needs to know, and it's got such incredible content behind it as well.
What as from an, dare I use the term, and maybe this is the wrong term, but from an artistic perspective, or from a filmmaker or a scriptwriter perspective, what about this story or this saga strikes you? I mean, obviously, those of us on Hive, we tend to really be drawn to the story, but from an outside perspective, what about this story grabs you and says, this is really interesting?
Well, I'm you know, I got some very libertarian roots. You know, you know, it's kind of I guess the decentralized nature of this, the taking, you know, there was a massive takeover by I guess a billionaire and I've spoken to a lot of people who've you know, believe that also there was kind of government intervention as well, all the exchanges getting behind this character and this takeover, and like all the corruption that went on kind of with you know, I don't want to say, I guess I don't want to kind of make too many accusations, but kind of Ned kind of selling out the community, and the community being able to actually take back the power. You know, it's like, that's incredible. That sets such a precedent for the world, you know, and to be able to put that into some form of, you know, artistic endeavor in the start, like, I guess, you know, I'm more kind of the lead on this. We've actually got a creative scriptwriter, Ryan, who can't be there, but he's the one who's going to kind of put this together, put the actual kind of creative writing together. Unfortunately, I'm too dyslexic to be able to kind of go too deep beyond anything beyond the research. But it's, I guess, putting that into something that can really give the gravity of the situation and what it, you know, what it actually means for, I guess, the future. Like the, you know, the legal case that's going on, the communities being able to fork and take out bad actors. Like, you know, imagine that kind of, I imagine seeing this for a lot of future projects, you know, and, you know, I see potentially even founders being forked out of their projects of kind of things going forward. Like, I guess it's incredible, you know, it's, you know, I would say I wish I was there, but everyone I spoke to, it sounds hella stressful and not like something I wanted to be part of, you know.
It wasn't the calmest of times, and it's ironic you mentioned that, because and tying this back to what you said about Fallen Larimer and his projects, and it's not quite to the same degree, but the EOS community, EOS, however you say it, has kind of stepped up, and they lash back at Block One for not quite the same thing, not for selling them out, but not fulfilling their obligations. And there was some money that, you know, Block One was going to get that the community decided, no, we're not going to do it. So you're right. It is setting a precedent. With the film, would you say that it would be more accurate to do it from a documentary standpoint where, okay, just the facts, ma'am? Or would this be more tilted towards the antagonist, protagonist type of Shakespearean model, where, you know, you got the good versus the evil and that type of thing? And, you know, how the David and Goliath, if you will, the big rich person, or the wealthy person comes in, cuts a backdoor deal, and then with the help of some of the exchanges, either knowingly or unknowingly, they aid in his cause. And here's these poor small community members who are about to be overrun, but they stand up and have different plans. I mean, is that an angle where you see it coming from, or is it more just doing a documentary thing?
Well, that's a pretty good question, because I believe it's Lord Butterfly actually has a documentary proposal that has passed, and he's kind of working on it. I've only spoken to him for comments on blog posts, so I'm actually looking forward to speaking to him and finding out some of his research. But I think the actual style of this thing, it's something that we're debating at the moment, and we're trying to work out the nitty gritty. Like, we have our community review team that we've got kind of key community members to come out and actually discuss this, and we've got our Discord where people are discussing ideas. But overall, I think that the David and Goliath thing is a pretty good angle, and actually having it from the community perspective. I guess one thing is we don't want to throw around, accusations that, didn't happen. There's a lot of, people out there who are very hurt by the situation. So we do have to be tread a little bit careful that we can't, I guess not, it's this feature length film. So we've got loads of poetic license, we can create what we want essentially, but, it still would be good to do the scenario, what actually happened, justice. So I guess in regards to style, like you ever seen The Big Short or Don't Look Up? Kind of like it's a serious topic, and it goes, it's got the really stressful moments, but it's got that subtle comedic side of things that kind of really can show it, and it follows the perspective of individuals within that scenario. And I think that's, from people that I've spoken to and kind of characters that are in there, on both sides, there's a real, I guess there's, we could really shape a story from the actual feelings of the individuals, and we could have, what one character we were discussing was kind of having someone who came into the community purely to make, get a currency that was going to the moon, but then he got drawn into this big kind of situation where, a billionaire was taking over a community, was trying to shut out a community, was trying to, effectively take away free speech, in a lot of cases. There's many nuances and stories that we can do this from, and people are talking about there's so much content there. Even like the town hall alone, you could make a film out of that. So you know what I mean? Like it's such a broad thing that we are trying to cover, that we've got to. I guess the David and Goliath aspect is very, very suited, and it could potentially be over more films. If we can get the flow right, but we're focusing on this film at the moment, and it's I think it's got some I think it's got some real potential, and I think there's a lot of really interesting aspects in the community that really do show people taking the power back.
Yeah, it really is the I don't want to say the first time, certainly it's not, but it is a monumental moment, especially in a monetary or financial situation where you mentioned The Big Short, and you get films of that nature that deal with monetary financial markets, and it's always, or not always, but most often it's the big boys swallowing up the little guys, steamrolling them, stepping on them, manipulating the markets, coming in, doing what they want. And Justin Sun was just another very wealthy individual. I remember because I grew up during that time period, the old corporate raiders in the 1980s, Carl Icahns and people of that nature, just going in and basically just using their extreme financial resources that they have access to, including the debt markets, to go and take over companies and just hit them with a sledgehammer and sell off the parts, and they profit, and what's left behind is just carnage. Justin Sun, I think, kind of came in with that same mindset, and like you said, here was a line in the sand that the community drew that said, we're not going to allow it to happen. And even though ultimately the community lost, Justin Sun won. Justin Sun got Steemit. He got his sock puppets running the witnesses. He controlled the Steem blockchain, but all the value, not all the value, but most of the value in terms of the applications, the community, the people, they pick up and left. They went with the fork. And that really, in my mind, is ushering in a new era. And I think from that perspective, now you have a very interesting story to tell.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I guess, as I said before, like, it just sets such a precedent that these big whales can't come in and steal. Well, obviously they still can, but they're within these decentralized communities, kind of developing their, the value is in a community. Wasn't it John McAfee said you can't buy a community? And I think that kind of sums it up so much. He tried to buy out a community. He tried to strong arm a community into doing something that was just unsavory to them, that wasn't along the lines of thinking. It wasn't down the philosophy of kind of what this whole thing was meant to be. And he lost it. The community was, came together and moved on. I think that, it's for want of a better word, it's incredible,
Well, and it does bring into question in this new economic model, if I can use that phrase,
Sure.
where does the value lie? Because you go in and buy Facebook, you buy Twitter. I mean, if you had enough resources, those people, for the most part, aren't going anywhere. The value lies in Facebook.com and the advertising it generates and the revenue stream. And, I mean, we know Facebook users aren't leaving, Twitter users aren't leaving.
Yeah.
But in this situation, you got to question, where does the value lie? Is it in the applications? Well, the applications are run by individuals and project teams. They can pick up and they can point their app at whatever blockchain they want. Is it in the base layer? Well, that's just code that's run on a bunch of different computers. And in this instance, and maybe it's because it was small, it was a tight-knit community, at least in this instance, we showed that the value was in the community itself. And if the community decides to pick up and go somewhere else, they can go somewhere else. Now, I don't know if it would have been the same situation if there were 50 million people using Steam. It may have been a totally different scenario.
Yeah, I think I think it does show kind of the community held all the power on this, and also speaking to everyone. Now everyone knows each other like even more intimately, because it's like, the whole community stood up, went through something, they had a common goal. And I'm speaking to all these different people from all these different backgrounds. There's people of all kind of all philosophies within the Hive community, but they've all kind of like, we came from this, we now know what we want. That's also what it solidified as well. Like, the people know what they want from their platform, and they don't want Justice Sun, obviously. But it's like, they want this open community where people can come in, where they're not going to stand up to, they're not going to put up with, yes, basically a bully coming in and, trying to rule the roost. Like, it's not about that. And I think, as I said before, it does set a precedent, but also looking at like the big giants like Facebook and Twitter, like, it's as the world becomes more decentralized, as the world becomes more, more and more, I guess more and more the tech, the tech opportunities open up more and more for people. What does that actually mean for big companies like Facebook and Twitter for the future? Like, I'm not saying it's going to happen in a year or tomorrow, but it's this. Say 5 years from now, maybe the landscape looks entirely different because of this precedent that has been set.
Well, I would agree with you. My view is that just having alternatives is the starting point, and then you can make the case alternatives that don't sell your data, where you're not the product, and then on top of that, have a new economic model where you're actually incentivized to engage and participate and become part of the community. And I frankly don't believe that Web2 companies can make that transition, because I don't think their business model allows for it, because they're still beholden to Wall Street and the same entities we talk about and we see in The Big Short and any of these other Wall Street firms. I mean, they're all about the money. They're all about what type of profits are you generating, and sharing that wealth is not on their agenda. So I think these Web2 companies are going to have a very difficult time transitioning and competing ultimately, because I think, just adding a token to Facebook's platform, or what is it, adding NFTs to Instagram's platform, I don't know if that's going to cut it.
Yeah, I think something that as the new world changes, like we're acting like these platforms are going to die as well. I think that the old money is going to move into has to move into the new world, and I think with these platforms giving people the option to move across, you're allowing the old system to kind of leave with dignity and move into this new world as they see all hope is lost. Like, they're trying to hold on to these huge investments, but but as we can see, like people are moving more and more decentralized, and I don't think the old world's going to go away anytime soon. It's not going to completely go away. There's always going to be these giant platforms. There's always going to be normies who are going over to it, for want of a better word. But it's I guess interesting time. Like the old system will. I think the amount of money that's there, within the old system, like it's as you said, these huge Wall Street firms and these huge global corporations. They're if an inevitability comes along, they're going to move along to that inevitability, but they're going to have to play by the rules of the new world. So I think it is making the world fairer, but it isn't like this giant. It isn't a giant slayer by any way. The giants are still going to be there. It's a step in the right direction, and I think that's incredible. And seeing the community kind of rise up and actually have the power. Like even this community still has whales that has aspects of control, and I think that's what's going to happen in the new world. But it's now a significantly more fairer. It's it's a brave new world.
Well, yeah, and my point always been, okay, yes, you can point to, let's say, the hive whales, but I don't know of a hive whale who is a big-time Bitcoin miner and running a huge mining operation on Bitcoin or Litecoin or Bcash or any of them for that matter. I'm sure there's some who have significant holdings in Bitcoin, but that doesn't really run the Bitcoin network. By the same token, are they mega whales in Ethereum? Not necessarily. So you can look at individual projects and say, well, there's some whales in there, but it's not the same whales in every single project. Whereas you go to Wall Street and it's like you look at a BlackRock. Well, BlackRock has $7 trillion assets under management.
Yeah.
They can go into whatever industry they want and just dominate. They're like 3 times the size of all of crypto. So that's how big they are. And Fidelity and any of these other companies, you can do the same thing. So I really think that's where a bit of the difference comes in. But with Hive, being somebody who just joined it, I think one of the interesting things, and you mentioned Starker's interview with Charlie Shrem, who for anybody who doesn't know, who's relatively new to crypto, Charlie Shrem is one of the old guard in Bitcoin. He was one of the ones in the early days of Bitcoin, going back to 2012 or 2013, and even ended up serving some jail time for running a platform that the ever-loving U.S. government said was against the law. Or maybe it was the Canadian government, whichever one. But either way, none of them are too friendly to crypto. But Charlie had a very interesting viewpoint. And I think coming from somebody like that, it really carries some weight. He said basically, outside of Bitcoin, Hive is now really the only truly decentralized chain that he sees. What are your thoughts on that, coming, relatively new to Hive, but you've been around cryptocurrency for, going on 6 years now?
I think it's actually something I've considered quite a bit. It's like when you actually look at crypto, there's so many projects that do have a founder that have got an Instamine, and have had unfair beginnings that have just made it not decentralized, that have made it, there's been a central power. And I think all these platforms that do have kind of have had an Instamine, ranging from Ethereum all the way to kind of all these ICOs, like I think they've got a day of reckoning coming with the securities commissions and things like that, and that's the price you pay for not being truly decentralized. But just going back to Hive, and Hive chose a name that, when the name Hive, and there was a Hive blockchain company, I believe, as well, that tried to sue Hive, but there was just no one they could sue because it was truly decentralized. It was like trying to sue Bitcoin, but if you wanted to go after Ethereum, you could find someone to sue. You could find someone to take down. And I would agree with Charlie that Hive is one of the true decentralized platforms, and it's because it hasn't had an Instamine, it hasn't got who's the founder of Hive? Well, it was the community. They fought it off, they developed it. There was no one you can go after, and I think I think that's one of the things we need to highlight in the film. It's like within Hive's conception, kind of towards like the third third of the film. It has to be, what this means for what this means for Hive. There is no ruler of it. There is no creator. It is it is like Bitcoin. There's arguments about Bitcoin being centralized that came up during the hash wars, but I think most of them are nonsense anyway. But Hive doesn't have anything like that. There are some very powerful actors within Hive, but how much power do they have? Like, they don't have control over the network, nowhere near. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I also think another interesting aspect to this story is you had Ned Scott and Darren Larimer, who were the two founders. Both are long gone. You have one of the guys who was very big in creating the software for the fork. He actually left. So it's like when you start to look at the influence that people have who set this up, it's like they leave, it still keeps going on. And one of the things Block Trades, who is his team is doing a large part of the core development, and been doing that for the last couple of years since the fork. One of his goals is that, we get to the point where you don't need us to do this, and the community can just keep doing the coding as it's required. A few people who have some C++ knowledge can go in and handle this, and you don't need a single entity behind it or a major developer behind it. And I think ultimately the word that comes to my mind with this is resiliency. And when I look up my background, by schooling at least, is in economics. And when I look at economic systems and especially crypto economic systems, one of the big things is the resiliency. And when you have, to get contemporary, the difference between the United States and Russia right now from an economic standpoint, forget the raw numbers, is the United States has an economy that's a lot more resilient than Russia's, because there's so many different sectors the United States is in. It's in tourism, it's in manufacturing, it's in healthcare, it's in real estate, it's in finance, it's in all these different things, and commodities and manufacturing and whatnot. Then you look at a Russia, which is very powerful right now because we're in a commodity bull market, but we know economies that are like that, when their bear market takes hold, their economic situation, their budgets just get destroyed. And so, really, when you look at Russia, what do they major in? Well, they make AK-47s, they do raw, commodities and fish. And so outside of that, manufacturing isn't a big thing and stuff like that. So when I look at Hive, at least at its economic foundation, it seems to be a horizontal structure as opposed to a vertical structure. When you look at, you mentioned Ethereum. Well, you have the Ethereum Foundation and Vitalik and some of the other people. They got 40% of the token supply. Yeah. And you take that and move into a proof of stake. Well, guess what that means? They control about 40% of the pools, because they basically vote for who they want, and their stake carries the day. And they can do it anonymous. You don't really know who's doing what. But that makes for a very lack of resilient system ultimately. Now, that said, Ethereum has enough money. There's enough stuff built upon it that, Ethereum's not going anywhere, in my opinion. Yeah. But when we look at that resiliency, even though Hive is very small in market cap and by comparison and with number of developers, number of projects, we hold nothing to Ethereum. We'll probably hold nothing to Binance Smart Chain at this point. But when you look at that resiliency, I say, okay, how are you going to topple this thing? Because like you said, okay, there's a few big players here and there, but none of them are really controlling entities. I think the most stake anybody has is 3, maybe 4%. If you want to control the thing, even with a significant share of 25, 30%, where the hell are you going to get that? You're going to have to go on the open market and buy what's that work out to 50 million tokens, 50 million Hive. Right now, that's going to cost you $50 million, and somebody going to try to buy that much Hive, they'll send the price skyrocketing. So even if from that regard, I see a lot of resiliency, which I think that's the offspring of exactly what you're talking about out of this war is we've ended up creating a more resilient ecosystem, which I think that's the ongoing narrative at the end of this movie, if you will. Do you see that point too?
Yeah, I do. I think I think it's kind of a good way of explaining what I'm trying to kind of say at the end about how it shows kind of the community taking the power back. Like it has created, that it's made everyone kind of, I guess, wiser to the threats that are out there, and with that, the resiliency does come in. Like, I don't. Were you guys there during the the town hall meetings, kind of everything that went on?
Yeah.
Like, kind of from your guys' perspective, like what do you think kind of the best way of I guess portraying or approaching a film like this? Like we've obviously had our debates, we've had our ideas, but from two people that have actually come from the space itself, actually came from that particular event itself, like how would you want something like this portrayed? Like let's take the Hive kind of I guess let's have it as kind of like the the hostile takeover leading to the birth of Hive. Like how would you want to see something like that portrayed?
Well, for me to answer that, I think it is. I think it's a combination of the David versus Goliath story morphing into the little engine that could, and the fact that the community welcomed Justin's son with open arms, albeit many were skeptical. But I think the overriding consensus was, okay, let's give this guy a chance. Let's see what he's about. And it was realized by a few parties very early on that this guy did not have positive intentions for the community. And that, I guess, was in the back rooms where the idea of forking this thing out in the development started to take place. And so you had the situation that prevailed, but I think an important part of the story is not only did the community prevail out of this event, what was created is actually more resilient and more powerful going forward than what was there before Justin's son entered the picture, because there was that founder stake, there was a Ninja Mind stake, the community was scattered a little bit, was not, I mean, like you alluded to earlier, it drew people together. And right now, I think it's safe to say Hive is a lot more powerful than Steam. So the offspring far surpassed the parent, and Hive is just getting started. And the fact is, there is more development taking place, and that's going to make this even more resilient, more appealing, more attractive. And the fact is, we're still seeing that horizontal structure just expand further and further out into DeFi, into gaming, into a lot of other things as more projects show up. And the wealth concentration is just being spread out. I think that's really the story.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, man.
No, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, no, the David and Goliath thing is bang on. What I really remember the most of it was not only the Justin Sun stuff, and we touched on it just earlier there, was that all of the exchanges went with Justin, like we're totally in bed with Justin Sun. And like, so you had the combined wealth of all these major players. They still really, I guess they kind of felt guilt tripped. So they started, adding Hive into their exchanges to be able to be traded. But they still have never, admitted it. They've never really, like they were totally in cahoots, like 100%. And whether they knew about it or not, that was the biggest challenge that I saw. I was just like, and Hive fixed it with the changes that have gone by. Now you can't just, get a whole bunch of stake and start voting on witnesses, all of us. Like there was so many problems, quote unquote, with the old way. And like Tass just said, it morphed into this better way of doing it. So the idea was there. Dan Larimer's original idea, whatever, the entire steam, and then the vision was slowly being realized, and it came out stronger. So that was the big thing for me, seeing that it wasn't just Justin, it was the majority of the major exchanges were totally along for the ride, and the community actually ended up winning, which was cool. So
I don't see, like, with the exchanges jumping on, it just shows kind of how many centralized aspects this space actually potentially can have. Like this is not known by a lot. A lot of crypto kind of heard things like this, but the actual full extent of this, it's considering the libertarian and kind of freedom movement that crypto has come from. I don't get why more people aren't up in arms. Why, like, this is something that a lot of other projects are going like, whoa, what's going on here? It's something that we potentially need to do something about in case it can happen to us as well. Because I keep saying it sets a precedent, but that kind of did set a precedent.
It got ignored. Like the majority of the crypto community, there was a few people that talked about it, and I know John McAfee said things, and even the Charlie Shrem thing now, but Binance is still freaking doing amazing. Huobi is still doing amazing. They're not hurting from it, but it just showed you, just like you said, how much centralization is there. And there's so many points of failure, and everyone was okay with it. The majority of the people were like, oh, yeah, whatever. It's like, okay.
Well, I think the bigger issue then is bringing up the idea of centralized exchanges getting involved in governance and voting on blockchains. Right. And the biggest problem was that a lot of times they were using community members' tokens to vote against the wishes of the community, because community members had their tokens on Binance or Huobi or wherever. They had some tokens there, and those were powered up, and then they had to wait 13 weeks. And that's where you could make the case that I think the exchanges kind of found they didn't look at the code. Then they found out, wait, we just locked our people's tokens up for 13 weeks. And they immediately started to do a power down, but by then the damage was done. So, it really is a fascinating story. And, I do agree with you that cryptocurrency, for all the propaganda overall, there's a lot of, I think we're doing well decentralized if you look at the collective, because, the wealth is spread out. There's different chains, and nobody's running, all the chains. But at the end of the day, you look at any individual projects, most of them have points of vulnerability because of founder stake, or, some of the mining, because the mining is really concentrated, outside of Bitcoin, where, okay, so let's say you do go and buy a mining company and you get 20% of the mining stake. That still doesn't give you the overwhelming majority. You're still, 1 in 5 if you're lucky, because it is kind of at random. So, that's going back to what Charlie said. It's like you got Hive, you got Bitcoin. Maybe there's some others there that are popping up that are small, that they're taking this approach. But we may see a lot more in the next couple of years as more ideas like the EOS community said. Now, they didn't fork it, but listen, I mean, they could have brought Larimer back and said, hey, let's do the same thing, but cut out block 1. I don't know if Dan would have done that, but, they could have gotten somebody in who knows the code and says, okay, let's just fork this thing out and we'll get rid of block 1 stake. We'll make that for growth and development, and we'll just carry on. Then all of a sudden you end up with something that's decentralized, at least to a much greater degree.
Did Dan say anything, during this Justin Sun takeover? Was there anything from Dan Larimer about it that you guys are aware of?
I don't recall. Dan tends to be, from my observation, and I don't know him, but Dan tends to be very tight-lipped about stuff. I don't often, when he does engage and interact, he's talking about his visions and his libertarian ideas and his Austrian School of Econ ideas. I don't really see him getting into the, they did wrong, or this is right. I don't see a lot of that from Dan. He seems to be one removed from it, but maybe he did and I missed it, but I don't recall anything.
I don't remember anything either.
Well, look, or some big players were like within my research though over this whole thing. Like obviously Vitalik telling everyone might as well move to a Hive now, and also John McAfee saying you can't buy a community. Like even with these big names kind of saying it is still kind of it is surprising how under the rug this whole the whole event actually is. Like I think that's one thing we want to put right with this film. We want to make it a good film so that so more people know about it. Do you know what I mean? More people know about it. More people can get an idea, and they can see the best chain won. The best chain really did won, and it was the community that won it.
So let's talk about the proposal you got, rocking, and I mean, obviously that's what the DHF was created for, right? I mean, for things to raise awareness and to promote and build and just contribute to the community. So obviously a Hive film, no brainer to me. What would be the timeline you're looking at? Because I know, my limited knowledge of anything film related. It's not a weekend project. So what are we looking at timeline wise?
So it's not a weekend project, and also we got to understand that the community needs to be involved. Like if they're funding it and things like this, we've already kind of built the initial framework, and I hope find kind of filmmaking for Hives, kind of all our posts. I've got the Discord link on there. Come join us, come speak to us, and let us know what you want from the film. But it's probably going to it's going to take 2 to 3 months, and that's with revisions and everything just to get the script done. And in regards to actually creating it, like the pre-production itself, it's I guess like it's probably a year on top of that, 6 months to a year on top of that. Like 6 months is a very, very enthusiastic. It's not it's probably not going to take 6 months, is what I'm saying. But after that, but the script itself, that's, making sure it's signed off by the community, making sure we've got the whole thing, making sure we've got the whole idea narrowed out. It's going to take about 2 months. And then 2 to 3 months. 3 months is like with all the revisions going on, with all the ideas. And with that as well, we're going to have quite a lot of research that we'll be able to kind of put together in our own documentation that we're going to share to the community. And I think that's another good thing that can come out of this proposal is we can, have a concise piece of script from all like the large amounts of research that we're going to get from this. Now, we're not going to release a script to the community as a whole because no one likes spoilers. Like, you're going to... Yeah.
Does Justin's son die in the end in your version of the film?
He gets launched into space, mate.
He's in Tesla's. He's in Elon Musk's Tesla that he set up on that rocket.
Yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, we got to be. We got to speak to. We got to get an idea of the whole side, but kind of the David versus Goliath thing is. I guess the comedy is. I know a lot of people wouldn't see it as comedy at the time, but after it, like the amount of memes and things like that that has come from it, it's Justin's son's broken English and him saying some very unfortunate things in some posts. Like there is already parts of the script that have written themselves. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's. I just think just learning about all this and kind of seeing it from there, like I understand kind of the severity of some of it, but some of it I've just. I spoke to Ganja Farmer, who was obviously in the town hall meetings. And he's quite a character, and he's quite a very funny guy. And he was telling me about the whole story, and he was going about how stressful it was. And I was just laughing at some of it. It just sounds so crazy. Do you know what I mean? It's. I think that's. I think this. The actual script itself. It's. It's going to have these nuances of humor, but still be able to kind of. Still be able to kind of show the severity of the situation. I think that is very important. And I think that's something that the community has highlighted as well in some of our early posts. If you check out our proposal, like we do have all our blog posts and any new ones that are coming out, because I've got a few others ready to launch and just add some discussions. I'll be putting them on the proposal as well. And obviously follow our channel and follow our Discord. I'll be announcing everything there as well. But I think it's not just me who's on the proposal. It's Ryan who's going to be he's the creative writer. He's going to bring this together, but he doesn't have a crypto background. He's been brought into crypto and he's worked on some projects, within crypto. And, he's actually written a white paper, not written a white paper, but basically tidied up and done the technical writing for a white paper as one of his clients. So he's not a newbie to all this, but it will, it'd be me kind of bringing all the research together, working out, bringing the community together, making sure this is done correctly. And it's just Ryan kind of bringing this together and bringing this into kind of a creative script. And we've also got a few community members who have kind of have a background of film as well, who've kind of come in and offered, to help us out, and they've been in our Ask Me Anything. I think it's Amir is awesome. We've got in there, we've got Basil Marples, who's kind of joined us, and Rafa. I can't remember his handle, but I was speaking to him earlier. He's got a background in film. He's had loads of crazy stuff, but all on the post-production level. So I think we've got some really good resources together to be able to kind of bring this together and make it into something that's worthy of such an event. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's proposal 212. I put the link up there so people can check it out.
I was just going to say, as you said, Justin's son is his own character, and you probably don't have to add too much fiction to him. Just take what he did, and that's comic relief in and of itself in many instances.
Yeah, we do have to be careful of like what, if we're going to show like kind of some of the back end stuff, like I guess when we bring what happened with the exchanges in, like how we've got poetic license, and how close to the truth do we have to stay? Well, not the truth, but how close to the evidence provided of what actually happened. Everyone's got an potential idea of what happened, but it's we got to be careful about kind of how we portray everything. We can't go totally that these are kind of sci-fi villains or anything like that. It's money moving at the end of the day, and money does talk in all these situations, and we got to remember that we got to throw the bad and the good of absolutely every aspect of this, and I think it's important that we have some balance in it all, but as you said, there's so many events to go over that does kind of show the motives of people, that we've got more than enough material without having to go too far down the kind of poetic license side of things.
Well, I would think with the exchanges, we know for a fact that they did stake customer Steam and voted with it. That can't be denied. That actually happened. Now, did they do it inadvertently? Did they not understand what they were doing? Did they think they were just that is subject to interpretation, and that could open up the grounds for them coming back and saying, you're misrepresenting it. We did not do it intentionally. We were misled. We didn't know. And that may be true. So I think that's where you just have to draw the line, say, this is what happened, whether they did it inadvertently or on purpose. You'll have to ask them. We have no idea. Nobody knows.
Yeah. Well, we can, like, the thing as well, it's like, it's, what names do we want to name in this? Like, it's a film, it's not a documentary. We can change the names to absolutely everything, and we can, put something out there so it doesn't make put too much targets on your back. But we want to keep as close to the truth as possible, because it is. I mean, it's a movie in itself. Do you know what I mean? If someone was there with cameras going around, it'd be a pretty entertaining piece.
I got a question for you, because you just touched on something too, and this I think is a good question, because you said you're relatively new to Hive, but you've been around crypto since 2016. Your opinion, you looking kind of like, maybe give us a couple of really good things you have found out about Hive, but some things that as a newer member of the community, what you think we could do better as a community.
What you can do better, that's a hard one. I guess what you can do better from my perspective is just the development of the platform more. Like, this tech is still emerging, and you encounter some things that kind of Web 2 is doing. You're just like, Google is got a load of problems, within privacy and things like that. But damn, is it easy to use? You know what I mean? Like, it's really nice to use. Like, you feel happy using it, kind of thing. I think Hive has some work to do around that side of things coming up. But it's growing pains. Like, it's what you pay as you pay for a developing technology such as these. And I think the enthusiasm and the going to the good side of Hive, I just think the community, man, like. The amount of people I've spoken to, like, just text messaging, like, had a load of people on the phone, like, and just understanding kind of, I guess, the unity and community, like, that has come from something like this. I think it's it's amazing. And it's, as you said, truly decentralized. Like, I think that's, from my kind of philosophical side point, it's the reason a lot of people get into the tech is because of that decentralized nature. And there are a lot of projects that are just pretending to be decentralized. They've done an ICO, they're pretending to be decentralized. But they've got all these centralized point of failures. There is not, the decentralized community is not making the decisions. And I think Hive definitely, is not one of them. And that's what I like about the community. And just like, it's like you've come up with an idea and people think it's a good idea, and they've all got, they're jumping on board. Like I have people jumping into the Discord channel, messaging me and Ryan. It's like, yo guys, what's going on? I've got this, I've got that. This is, I want to be in your film. I've got this information. It's like it's brilliant. Like it is absolutely brilliant. And to anyone's listening, come join the Discord and message me if you've got something to add. It'd be good to chat to you. It's like we're trying to get this thing over the line and we're trying to make this thing happen. Like I think it's going to be wicked.
I'm looking forward to it. If there's a big premiere and stuff, where we're gonna have it and stuff, I'll try to get there. Red carpet and everything, right? Task, yeah. No.
Hopefully you wear your leopard skin thong. I mean,
I was thinking more of a Borat look. That's what I was going for.
Full mankini.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think one thing as well is like it's so early stages at the moment. There's a lot of questions about how this thing's going to get out that just don't need answering now, but they need considering as well. Like what in our Ask Me Anything we were discussing, it's like, well, what happens within film? You write the script, it goes to a producer, and then the producer produces it. Everyone's got their costs, and then it's sold to a distributor, and then there's probably going to be profits on top of that. Like what happens to the profits? And I think like another thing we have to consider here is like licensing and distribution is easy. You sell it to a distributor, they get the license, and distributing, unless it goes on to like a platform, say like YouTube or 3Speak and Hive, unless it goes on to something like that, then it's that then generates the value itself, and the person who uploads it gets it. But generally, the distributor buys the rights to it, and then they distribute it in, and this is across different continents. So you've got like North America, South America, Europe, Asia. Those are all different markets for distribution. But you've got to think it's like, where are those profits going to go? And I think something that I was speaking with Guilty Parties about, he was telling me like, it could be put forward as a donation to the DHF, all the profits actually going back to the Hive. But, that's like, if it's negotiations we've got to, consider and going forward when the script's close to being finalized. Because, let's say Charlie Shrem isn't interested. I that's very unlikely in my view, because he's clearly really interested. He clearly likes it, But let's say we have to go to another producer, where's the profits? We've got to decide, what their negotiation standpoints are, because I've worked with producers and things like that. A lot of them are very unscrupulous. They want big money, and they want to get everything as cheap as possible. So we've got to understand this kind of and hold our ground and make sure that we're getting the right deal for something like this once it actually comes forward. If Charlie Shrem isn't interested, but Charlie Shrem's, I think the stars are aligned. You know what I mean? I don't mean to get too whimsical and spacey, but I think this is meant to happen. Like this is coming at the right time, and this is something that the dominoes fall. And I think Charlie Shrem is sparked something truly awesome with this. And I think if we can create the right script, he can help produce it, and we can actually create something epic and actually get it onto some potentially major platforms, then actually get the profits going, after everyone's been paid, their working rate, the profits going back into, either all the profits or a percentage of the profits going back into the, decentralized Hive fund,
Makes a lot of sense. Anything from the peanut gallery, John?
No, actually, speaking of guilty parties, he sent me a note here. He was just like, the Hive blockchain technologies company, they didn't try to sue Hive. It was sent because he said they were people harassing and pretending to be confused over the name. So that it's funny. I remember when that happened too, and it was like, it was like, just like you said, Tass, like who do you send the letter to? Like I think it was sent to someone, but that was interesting, because that was like the first week. Right, that was like right away. That was like news, and people were like, "Oh man, we're not even gonna last the week."
Well, and that opens up the other can of worms when you have something decentralized and you start talking about intellectual property and stuff like that. What can companies do? I mean, if you have a decentralized token and you name it McDonald's, McDonald's is going to want your hind end. But if there's no place to send for the attorneys to send the letter, the cease and desist or the lawsuit, what do? And that's going to be maybe that can be your next film. Film number 2.
I like it.
I think we can get this off the ground. Like there's lots of great stories that can be told in crypto. Like I think a lot of people are just creating most of the documentaries that are being created are more about the financial side, not actually about the tech wars that are going on. Like Bitcoin alone, like the amount of stuff. Like have we got any film about the hash wars? Have we got anything about the arguments about Satoshi? Like I know they're both kind of small subjects, but there's just so much within crypto that's not getting talked about because it's it's getting talked about more and more, and it's like there's that new Vice documentary and they include things like Lieberland and kind of the libertarian part of that, but it's generally just about the surface level stuff, and it's about the price. And I think something like this really would if it was successful, if it was done in that kind of Big Short, Don't Look Up style, or whatever kind of film style coming out, and actually it'll make people think, oh, this blockchain cryptocurrency sort of thing is something I want to look into. It sounds like a good deal.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot bigger messages, if you will, to be distributed and delivered, as opposed to just buy this token and get rich.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I know it's exciting times.
Yeah, this will be good, man. So again, the proposal is 212. It's out there for everyone to check out, and this is, I mean, again, I'm pretty biased, but I think this is a fantastic way for something like the DHF to be used, raising awareness, telling the stories of us, like you said, we're the Davids here, and we slayed the dragon, man. So, but it's a great story. I'm looking forward to it to see it come out. So
yeah, well, we'll know by kind of Friday next week. Like we've got a week to kind of drum up support. I'm going to keep speaking to people, and because as well, I want to speak. This is a great opportunity to speak to a lot of the big names to get their opinion on it ready and lined up. During this time, there's loads of great people in the community that have got stories to tell about this whole thing. And I'll tell you what my biggest worry is there's just so much there. Is how are we going to fit it all into a film? There's just so much there. It's mental. It's mental.
Do a trilogy.
Yeah.
What is it? Atlas Shrugged? They did a trilogy.
Yeah.
Do your own trilogy.
Yeah,
I think maybe some executive decisions around that may be made during the script writing if it does come to that. It's just so much there. It's just so incredible. Once we get the start timeline out there, and that's another thing. Everyone I'm speaking to the community, it's like I'm having to dig here, there, everywhere just to get the resources for all these different things that happened to the community. There's a few kind of articles about the whole situation that summarize it, but actually looking, is there something out there that has one resource for everyone to come into? I think it'd be good to produce something like that for the community as well, so that everyone can, go in. I mean, it'd be days and days and days of research, don't get me wrong, but all in one place would be, it'd be a good resource to have, and it'd be good for people who watch the film then to see this resource and be actually look into it, and bring more and more people into the decentralized way of thinking, and more people into realizing that, David won for a reason,
Looking forward to it, man. Anything else? Think of anything else?
I think it was a wonderful show and a wonderful representation of the possibilities that could go into this film. It's exciting stuff. I wasn't aware that it was going to be an expanded, not exactly a documentary. It's going to be more of a
a film,
a feature film.
length film. Yeah.
So I think that's very exciting. That puts a totally different angle on it. Like you said, The Big Short. Anybody who's seen that's not an exact representation of the collapse in the housing market and mortgage-backed securities, but it was based upon what took place during that time period. So that would be very exciting to get that angle of the Hive story too.
I would just want to know who's going to play you, Task.
Who?
Man, who's going to play you?
No. I was not a main character in there, so you just need the.
You're an extra. You're just an extra, right?
I'm just some bald guy in sunglasses. That's all I am. So no.
I've been joking around with the community, saying like, look, if you it's like if you want an actor to play you, choose you choose your actor, but also we're not sure of the budget yet, so choose like your main actor and also a budget version. So it'd be like Nicolas Cage and then just some guy that we found on Gumtree.
Either Vin Diesel or that dude playing in summer stock up in Hartford, Connecticut.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. So, dude, this is great, man. Looking forward to it. Hope it gets funded. And thank you for spearheading this project, because the Hive story needs to be told more and more and more. So appreciate it.
Cheers for having me on, guys. Like it's been really fun. I've enjoyed speaking to you both. Like I think I'm excited, and I think hopefully I conveyed just how awesome this could potentially be to everyone.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your time.
Cheers, guys.